Hello, my beautiful bookish people. In this video, I'm going to be going over my May TBR. And by May TBR, I mean the books that I might read, but I'm not going to hold myself to because I found out that I really don't like locking myself into only the books I can read instead of some of the books which I can read. So these are some of the books which I can read. Oh, hello, Mr. Dehumidifier. Let's turn you off. So instead, these are some of the books which I may read in May. Aha! Word puns that I didn't mean to do until I realized it after I did them. So first we're going to start with the book that I'm currently reading, because today is April 30th, and I don't think I'm going to finish this book by the end of the day. So I'm going to say that it's going to flow over into May. And that is The Space Between Worlds by Micaiah Johnson. I'm already really enjoying the story, but here, let me just read you the book blurb, because while I do know a little bit more about it than this, we're going to start with this. An outsider who can travel between worlds discovers a secret that threatens her new home and her fragile place in it. In a stunning sci-fi debut that's both a cross-dimensional adventure and a powerful examination of identity, privilege, and belonging. Multiverse travel is finally possible, but there's just one catch. No one can visit a world where their counterpart is still alive. Enter Kara, whose parallel selves happen to be exceptionally good at dying, from disease, turf wars, or vendettas they couldn't outrun. Kara's life has been cut short on 372 worlds in total. On this Earth, however, Kara has survived. Identified as an outlier and therefore a perfect candidate for multiverse travel, Kara is plucked from the dirt of the wastelands. Now she has a nice apartment on the lower levels of the wealthy and walled-off Wiley City. She works and shamelessly flirts with her enticing yet aloof handler, Dell, as the two women collect off-world data for the Eldridge Institute. She even occasionally leaves the city to visit her family in the wastes, though she struggles to feel at home in either place. So long as she can keep her head down and avoid trouble, Kara is on a sure path to citizenship and security. But trouble finds Kara when one of her 8 remaining doppelgangers dies under mysterious circumstances, plunging her into a new world with an old secret. What she discovers will connect her past and her future in ways she could have never imagined, and reveal her own role in a plot that endangers not just her world, but the entire multiverse. And so far from what I've read, that seems to be holding true, and I'm really excited to get to the parts where we find out what's actually going on to threaten the multiverse, because I'm definitely nowhere near that yet. But so far, I have marked up several things. There are going to be a lot of quotes out of this book that I want to remember, and I am so excited to continue reading it. Next, we have the other book that I started in April that I'm definitely not going to finish by the end of April, and that is We Had a Little Real Estate Problem. Kliph Nesteroff is the person on the title, but it says within the first few pages of the book that this is kind of an anthology and kind of a discussion, so it pulls from a lot of different sources in this as well. But I first heard about this book over from Bear on Etu Brody's channel, and it sounded really interesting, so let me read you the blurb. It was one of the most reliable jokes in Charlie Hill's stand-up routine. My people are from Wisconsin. We used to be from New York. We had a little real estate problem. In We Had a Little Real Estate Problem, acclaimed comedy historian Kliph Nesteroff focuses on one of comedy's most significant and little-known stories, how despite having been denied representation in the entertainment industry, Native Americans have influenced and advanced the art form. The account begins in the late 1880s when Native Americans were forced to tour in Wild West shows as an alternative to prison. One modern comedian said it was as if a Guantanamo detainee suddenly had to appear on X Factor. This is followed by a detailed look at the life and work of seminal figures such as humorist Will Rogers and Charlie Hill, who in the 1970s was the first Native American comedian to appear on The Tonight Show. Also profiled are several contemporary comedians, including Johnny Roberts, a social worker from the Red Lake Nation who drives 5 hours to the closest comedy club to pursue his stand-up dreams, Kiowa Apache comic Adrienne Chalepa, who's formed the touring group Ladies of Native Comedy, and the 1491s, a sketch troupe whose satire is smashing stereotypes to critical acclaim. As Thomas Ryan Redcorn, the Osage member of the 1491 says, the American narrative dictates that Indians are supposed to be sad. It's not really true, and it's not indicative of the community experience itself. Laughter and joy is very much a part of Native culture. Featuring dozens of original interviews and the extensive research that is Nesteroff's trademark, We Had a Little Real Estate Problem is a powerful tribute to a neglected legacy. And now you know just about as much about the book as I do so far, and I'm really looking forward to getting into it and learning a much more accurate historical account. Next, we have another book that I thought I was going to get to in April, but didn't, but I'm super looking forward to, is Uprooted by Naomi Novick. A dark enchantment blights the land. Agnieszka loves her village, set deep in a peaceful valley, but the nearby enchanted forest casts a shadow over her home. Many have been lost to the woods, and none return unchanged. The villagers depend on an ageless wizard, the dragon, to protect them from the forest's dark magic. However, his help comes at a terrible price. A young village woman must serve him for 10 years, leaving all she values behind. Agnieszka fears her dearest friend Kasia will be picked at the next choosing, for she's everything Agnieszka is not, beautiful, graceful, and brave. Yet when the dragon comes, it's not Kasia he takes. And I don't really know what's going on, but I appreciate that there is a guy called the Dragon, and I'm also simultaneously reading the Wheel of Time series, where there is also a man who's also referenced as the Dragon, and I'm wondering if this will nod to that, or if there's an underlying tale about the dragon that I just don't know about and I need to also add to my TBR at some point. But I'm really looking forward to getting into Uprooted at some point. Next, we have a book that several people have told me to read that I might finally get around to, and that is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. Now, I haven't read anything in the Grishaverse, and I started to read Six of Crows at one point, but when I picked it up and was reading it, I was really not in the mood for that style of fantasy, so I put it down and never picked it back up, and I don't have a copy of it because I was checking it out through the library. But from the people who have told me to pick this up directly, I have a feeling I'm gonna really like Ninth House, and I really hope I do. Why I'm just now getting into Leigh Bardugo work, I have no idea, but from what I've gathered, this is her first foray into adult fantasy instead of YA, and I've been in a really adult fantasy mood lately. So let's read the book blurb, because I haven't actually looked at reviews of this book yet because I didn't want any spoilers. Galaxy Alex Stern is the most unlikely member of Yale's freshman class. Raised in the Los Angeles hinterlands by a hippie mom, Alex dropped out of school early and into a world of shady drug dealer boyfriends, dead-end jobs, and much, much worse. In fact, by age 20, she is the sole survivor of a horrific unsolved multiple homicide. Some might say she's thrown her life away, but at her hospital bed, Alex is offered a second chance to attend one of the world's most prestigious universities on a full ride. What's the catch, and why her? Still searching for answers, Alex arrives in New Haven, tasked by her mysterious benefactors with monitoring the activities of Yale's secret societies. Their 8 windowless tombs are the well-known haunts of the rich and powerful, from high-ranking politicos to Wall Street's biggest players. But their occult activities are more sinister and more extraordinary than any paranoid imagination might conceive. They tamper with forbidden magic, they raise the dead, and sometimes they prey on the living. So, yeah, that sounds right up my alley, especially since I've been reading a lot of murdery, mystery type things, and I do like a good political commentary and whatnot. So, maybe I'll get to Ninth House this month. Next, we have another book that I was supposed to get to in April that I didn't, but I did kind of start it, and by kind of start it, I mean I think I read the first 2 pages and then I got really sleepy, and that is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. And I'm super duper excited to get into this because, again, multiple people in my life has recommended it to me. And apparently there is hypermobility representation in this book, which is awesome, especially since May is EDS and HSD Awareness Month. Yeah, hypermobile spectrum disorder, HSD. And EDS is Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is what I have, along with several other maladies, but that's not why we're here to talk about today. So I'm just really excited to see hypermobility discussed in a high fantasy book, and I really need to get into the series, and I don't know why I haven't yet. So let's read the book blurb. She is a peasant, she is a student, she is a soldier, she is a goddess. When Rin aced the Keju, the empire-wide test to find the most talented youth to study at the academies, it was a shock to everyone, to the test officials who couldn't believe a war orphan from Rooster Province could pass without cheating, to Rin's guardians, who always thought they'd be able to marry Rin off to further their criminal enterprise, and to Rin herself, who realized she was now finally free of the servitude and despair that had made up her daily existence. That she got into Seingard, the most elite military school in the Nikara Empire, was even more surprising. But surprises aren't always good. Being a dark-skinned peasant girl from the south is not an easy thing at Seingard. Rin is targeted from the outset by rival classmates because of her color, poverty, and gender. Driven to desperation, she discovers she possesses a lethal, unearthly power, an aptitude for the near-mythical art of shamanism. Exploring the depths of her gift with the help of a seemingly insane teacher and psychoactive substances, Rin learns that gods long thought dead are very much alive, and that mastering control over her powers could mean more than just surviving school. For even though the Nikara Empire is at peace, the Federation of Mugen still lurks across a narrow sea. The military advanced Federation occupied the Nikara Empire for decades after the First Poppy War, and only barely lost the continent in the Second. And while most of the people in the Empire would rather forget their painful history, a few are aware that a Third Poppy War is just a spark away. Rin's shamanic powers may be the only way to save her people, but as she finds out more about the god who has chosen her, the vengeful phoenix, she fears that winning the war may cost her her humanity, and it may already be too late. And this also sounds like something right up my alley, especially since it's not exactly historical fiction, like it very much goes into high fantasy, but the Poppy War is based off of the Opium Wars, which is a English Empire colonial war that happened over in Asia in, I believe, the 1830s to around 1860. So I'm really, really interested to get into that, since I'm also kind of a little bit of a history nerd too. And I'm not going to say that I saved the best for last, but I will say that I saved one of my most favorite authors for last to tell you about, which is The Ship of Magic, which is the first book in, let's see, is this the Dark Ship Traders trilogy? No, the Live Ship Traders. Book one of the Live Ship Traders trilogy. It told me right on the cover and I missed it, so now I look weird. But that's okay, because it's Robin Hobb, and I love Robin Hobb, as I discovered in April. And now I'm trying to contain myself to where I only read one Robin Hobb trilogy a month, and maybe I'll restrict that to 1 or 2 Robin Hobb books per month, but knowing me, I'm going to sit here and basically not move and kind of eat and barely take care of myself while I read these books if they're anything like the Farseer trilogy. Because I have an unhealthy habit where I want to get lost and ignore the real world and just, consume a book that I'm really into instead of, doing basic hygiene necessities. Wizardwood, the most precious commodity in the world, comes only from the Rain Wilds, but only a live ship can negotiate the perilous waters of the Rain Wild River, and live ships are hard to come by. They quicken only when 3 family members from successive generations have died upon their deck. The live ship Vivacia? The live ship Vivacia is about to undergo her quickening. Althea Vestrit waits for the ship that she loves more than anything in the world to awaken, but her dream of taking her father's place at Vivacia's helm is not to be, for her family have other plans, and the dark, charming pirate Kennet also lusts after such a ship. He well knows the power of Wizardwood and has plans of his own. Normally, I'm not super into pirate stuff, but Robin Hobb wrote it, so I want to read it. Yay! And those are all of the books that I've kind of, earmarked? What is the right word I'm looking for? These are the ones that I'm kind of most excited about right now and really want to jump into, but as I found out in April, I really do not like having a set TBR to stick to because I am such a mood reader. And if I try to stick to it, I'll just force myself into a reading slump, which is not what I'm about. So, will I stick to this at all? Who knows? But these are some things that I'm looking forward to, at least at the moment. And that's it for my May TBR. If you've made it this far, leave me a purple heart emoji down in the comments below, or just a heart, and tell me what book you are most looking forward to reading in May. And with that, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!